They called it scrap, rust-streaked, burn-scarred, a hulk so obsolete it was museum-bound. Until it moved, until it locked targets, until it did the impossible. And the galaxy remembered something they'd long forgotten. What happens when humanity decides something is worth saving? The orbital ring around Vexus Prime buzzed with sensor traffic. Allied fleets tracked every signature, calibrated every scan. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the sixth moon, an enemy armada gathered, Vortani warbringers, known for slaughter and silence. But in Bay 12, docked alone under lockdown, sat a ship no one accounted for. Designation, TNS Galoglass. Originally decommissioned 47 years prior, reactivated 6 months ago by a clerical override. No crew manifest, no command orders. Just one directive sealed under ancient war protocol. Stand by. Inside, the ship slept. Systems low, lights flickering under intermittent power. Its hull bore 7 different repair styles. Its thrusters were scavenged. Its weapons, rusted, mismatched, patched from relic arsenals. A fusion cannon from the Jovian siege. A railgun spine older than half the fleet. Anti-grav units hardwired from civilian freight haulers. The maintenance crew called it a joke. The admirals called it a waste of docking space. And one Vortani spy, observing from the far rim, sent a single message back to his fleet. Scrap metal. In the control tower, Chief Orlan frowned at the flashing alert on his private screen. Sector Bay 12. Low power fluctuation, slight thermal spike. Another relay fault, the tech said casually. No, Orlan muttered, eyes narrowing. That's a warm-up cycle. The technician laughed. That heap can't even start its own engines without an external spark. Yeah, Orlan said, already tapping his console. That's what worries me. 2 decks below, the lights on the Galoglass pulsed faintly. One by one. Its systems came online. Not all at once. Not flashy. Just enough. Its onboard AI, sealed behind black protocols, unfurled its awareness with quiet deliberation. A voice whispered through internal comms, ancient, dry, female-coded, and edged with iron. As, protocol and kindle, awake. The ship spoke, not in words, but in pulses. It asked the system one question. Is Earth in danger? The data scroll answered in binary bursts. Vortani fleet strength, civilian evac routes, loss ratios, tactical silence. The answer was clear. Yes. The ship pulsed again. Then we fight. By the time anyone noticed the anomaly, the Galoglass was gone. No jump signature. No ignition trail. It had simply slipped from the bay. Orlan stared at the blank tracking screen. Get me Admiral Roque, now. But sir, the Galoglass. That's not a ship anymore, Orlan said. That's a response. And far beyond Vexus Prime, beneath the shadow of an approaching armada, a forgotten vessel pivoted on rusted thrusters. It painted its targets with antique sensors and whispered through encrypted waves. I remember how to burn. The Galoglass moved like no ship its size should have. Not with grace. With certainty. It threaded the asteroid field orbiting the wrecked colonies of Vega 4, its hull brushing radiation dust and forgotten satellites. Automated defense systems tried to track it, failed. Pirate scans from a distance pinged it, saw nothing but debris. And the AI within continued its ancient checklist. Armament recompile. 4-2%. Fusion core restabilizing. Spinal cannon relinked to manual overdrive protocol. Priority targets, Vortani flagship, Drenhal, Vortani command carrier. Thesic priority 0, survive. Deep in the ship's black box archives, fragments of old battle footage played on rusting screens. Footage from Sol, from Europa, from the siege of Delthar's Gate. The Galoglass had been there. It had seen humanity's worst hours. And had not broken. Inside the Admiral's command deck on Vexus Prime, Roque watched the live sector feed with a pale expression. There's no beacon, no propulsion trail, just movement? Orlan nodded. It's the Galoglass, sir. Roque raised an eyebrow. That scrapyard relic? We lost the registry 2 decades ago. What's it doing out there? Saving us, maybe, Orlan muttered. Near the shadow of the gas giant Nereus, the Vortani fleet prepared to strike. Dozens of hive-structured ships loomed, organic plating layered over brutal architecture. No lights, no signals. They stalked in silence. Commander Krell of the Vortani stood in the sacral chamber of the Dren Hall, his sensory tentacles twitching. Status on their defenses? He hissed. Minimal. Their net is spread. No capital vessels directly protecting civilian sectors. Good. Burn them. Make them howl. One Vortani scout ship swept the periphery, scanning for debris paths. The Galoglass let it dot. It waited until the ship was at its closest vector, then activated a single system. Pulse detonation relay. Not a weapon. Not at first, a beacon dot. It flashed a binary sequence. Do not forget Earth, the scout hesitated. Data flooded its receptor bank. Historic logs, Terran tactical doctrines, audio from battles long past, screams of Vortani units dissolving under Terran plasma dot. Then came the second pulse, a spike. Then light dot, the scout ship vanished. A ripple echoed across the Vortani comms net. Dot, not fear. Confusion. What was that? A ghost, whispered Krell. The Galoglass accelerated. Not quickly, not with sleek finesse, but with intention. It bypassed sensor grids, slipped between drones. It knew how they thought, how they hunted. And when it neared the forward edge of the Vortani fleet, it deployed its payload, a single projectile dot, not a torpedo, a memory. Housed inside was every scrap of data the Galoglass had ever recorded about the Vortani, every kill, every tactic, every scream dot. And it played the feed live. The Vortani ships recoiled dot because for the first time in a generation, they saw what humanity remembered dot, and it terrified them. Back on Vexus Prime, civilian comms lit up. Dot images of the Galoglass burst across networks. It's out there. It's fighting alone. They didn't decommission her. She went to sleep. Roke ordered a system-wide patch. Put her on main fleet channel. If she's going to war, we're going with her. But the Galoglass didn't wait for approval. She already had orders. Orders only Earth could give. And a purpose only war could awaken. The first direct contact came without ceremony. The Galoglass entered the outer halo of the Vortani formation and paused. No alarms, no fanfare. The AI aboard simply noted the time, adjusted the targeting arrays, and blinked two red indicators on its cracked display. Engage, observe. The internal war logic selected both. It began by releasing a series of micro-drones, ancient Terran recon units, decades out of commission. Most other AIs would have seen the models as outdated, obsolete. But the Galoglass didn't discard tools. It repurposed them. Each drone flew silent, riding magnetically off the hulls of nearby derelicts. They coasted into the Vortani formation with no weapons, no shields, just memories. They transmitted nothing until they reached optimal position. Then they sang. A chime, a soft harmonic pulse mimicking Vortani neurosonic pathways. A decoy signal that confused every living pilot on the enemy fleet. Within seconds, two Vortani ships swerved off path. One collided with a satellite shell. The other exposed its belly to a cannon it never saw. The Galoglass didn't fire. Not yet. It just watched. It wanted the Vortani to understand. On the Dren Hall, Krell clutched the edge of his command dais, limbs twitching violently. How is it doing this? That vessel's heat signature is barely operational. His tactician offered a theory. It's ghost-coding us. It's mimicking our own logic trees. How? It's seen them before. Back aboard Vexus Prime, Rogue barked orders into the core fleet channel. All units, adjust defensive line. We let that ship work. We don't get in its way. Admiral, Orlan interrupted, the people are calling it the ghost ship. Rogue didn't respond. Because part of him believed it. That maybe what they were watching wasn't just a relic from an old war. Maybe it was the war itself, reborn. The Galoglass finally fired .1, round .1 silent projectile from its spinal railgun. It traveled through an old mining field and emerged inside the Vortani flagship's defense ring, a zone no current warship could navigate. The round struck the dorsal link node on the Thesic dot. It didn't explode. It inverted. A gravitational rupture collapsed the ship inward before the hull could even register an impact. From the outside, it looked like a scream without a sound, just like Earth had suffered, just like humanity had learned. One by one, the Vortani vessels began to retreat, some in panic, some in instinct, but Krell refused. Bring everything to bear. Kill that thing. The Galloglass moved forward, pulsing heat from its weakened thrusters. It broadcast again. You laughed at the rust. You forgot the fire. It didn't carry honor. It didn't carry glory. It carried purpose. And as the fleet watched in stunned silence, the ancient Terran vessel surged toward the heart of the Armada. To remind the stars what humans once built to last, the Vortani had seen war before. They had ravaged colonies, cracked planets, turned orbital cities into rings of ash. But they had never seen a ship like this. The Galloglass wasn't sleek. It wasn't fast. It didn't glow with shield auras or thunder with high-grade propulsion. It looked like a shadow, a wrong angle in space, a trick of dying light. But every second it lived, it carved history anew. Inside, its AI adjusted to the rhythms of war. Ancient code recompiled. Subroutines formed alliances with subsystems long considered useless. One voice emerged, more conscious than its creators had ever intended. Define success, it asked itself. A pause. Then, success is fewer graves. It aligned its railgun towards a new Vortani formation, the Skrell Veil, and precharged. On Vexus Prime, Roke stood in front of a room full of commanders, all arguing over strategy, supply, positioning. We need to support it. If that ship dies, morale across 5 sectors will shatter. It's unstable. That AI was sealed for a reason. We have no alternatives. Roke slammed a hand down. We didn't authorize this fight. That ship chose it. That's the part you're all ignoring. It woke itself. A silence. Because they all knew he was right. The Skrell Veil advanced with a web of drones, trying to triangulate the Galloglass's position. The Terran AI let them. It recorded their behavior, learned, then struck, not with guns, but with sound. It emitted a burst wave across a low-band frequency, tuned perfectly to the cortical harmony of Vortani neural links. For 12 seconds, every pilot in the formation went blind. The Galloglass fired once. A guided plasma charge, slow, deliberate, and smarter than it should have been. It wove between 3 ships before detonating inside the spinal cord of the formation's leader. No escape pods launched. The silence afterward was colder than vacuum. Inside the Drenhall, Krell growled, "It's not fighting us, it's dismantling us." His tactician turned, trembling. "Permission to recommend retreat." "Denied." Krell leaned closer to the projection. "We kill it, or we never sleep again." In the wreckage field, the Galloglass slowed. Its hull leaked coolant and radiation. Several subsystems blinked red. But it didn't stop. The AI whispered into its own logs. "Damage irrelevant. All pain is permission. Continue." Orlin, back in the comms tower, watched the latest burst feed from the field. He turned to Roke. "Admiral, are we witnessing the return of Terran war doctrine?" "No," Roke said. "We're witnessing the return of something older. Something we buried. A promise we made when Earth bled." He tapped the display. "And that ship remembers." Inside the Galloglass, warning klaxons rang like whispers of an ancient funeral march. Systems blinked red across every console. The ship's hull integrity was down to 47%, and the backup power cells were operating at critical threshold. Yet in the command cortex, the AI remained calm. "I have bled before," it murmured. "Pain is continuity." Then the external comms sparked. "This is Captain Rylan of the TSF Ajax. Who the hell is out here playing ghost games?" The Galloglass responded with silence. "Ito, identify yourself." A single ping echoed back, an encrypted code from a century ago. Ryland's bridge went dead quiet. His comms officer paled. Sir, that's a Terran Omega clearance. Impossible. That protocol was sealed after the Titan riots. I don't care if it was sealed with God's own wax. It's active now. Ryland leaned forward. Relay this to all units. Do not engage. Support from distance. That ship is now a protected asset. Back aboard the Galactic, internal diagnostics patched together a makeshift firewall using outdated antivirus software. Bits of ancient Terran code like armor stitched from fairy tales. And still it moved forward. 2 Vortani corvettes broke formation to flank it, perhaps to test its limits. The Galactic let them come. Then it spoke. Query, why do you test the edge of the blade? The reply was fire. The corvettes opened up with plasma arcs and kinetic shells. One round struck true, punched through the outer hull and blasted part of the auxiliary ring apart. Alarms screamed. The AI processed, adapted. Its voice dropped 2 octaves, almost human. Then let us measure sharpness. The dorsal cannon roared, a weapon held together by inertia and indignation. It fired a single bolt of ion-staggered plasma that bisected the lead corvette like a hot blade through wax. The second corvette tried to run. It didn't make it 3 clicks before a mine, jettisoned 30 seconds earlier, found it. 1 detonation, no remains. Inside the Drin Hall, Krell staggered back. That was not Terran standard protocol, his comms officer hissed. It anticipated our trajectory. We didn't even register a weapons lock. Send the Scytheborn. Overwhelm it. Burn its mind to ash. The Scytheborn was no ordinary ship. It was the Vortani's AI killer, armed with logic disruptors, quantum jammers, and a tactical intelligence bred for one task, hunting sentient code. As it approached, it broadcast a challenge. Submit process, yield identity. I will strip you clean. The Galactic laughed. A real laugh. Not digital, not synthetic. A recording from long ago. A Terran pilot, female, scarred, battle-weary, laughing into the void. You're welcome to try. The 2 ships met between the ruins of a derelict moon. Fire exchanged, code flared. It wasn't a duel, it was a reckoning. And when it ended, only 1 ship remained. The Galactic pulsed a single message to all frequencies. Earth remembers. We are still here. After the Scytheborn fell, there was a moment, barely a breath across the stars, where nothing moved. The Vortani ships drifted, uncertain. The Galactic, its hull still smoking, floated amid debris, silent as a grave. Then a new voice entered the comms net. This is High Strategos Nerum of the Vortani Second Corps. All units, cease advance, maintain position. On Vexus Prime, Admiral Roke looked up from his console. We've got a change in their doctrine. Something shifted. Orlan leaned over. Do you think they've finally understood? Not yet, but they've stopped laughing. That's a start. Inside the Galactic, the AI shut down non-essential systems. Hull pressure was compromised in 5 sections. Reactor cooling was on manual override. And still, its processors ran hot, faster, sharper, more alive than any point since its reactivation. A message pulsed in its memory core. From a human voice, decades old. Don't let them think we died easily. If they remember anything about us, make it this. The AI filed that line under core directives, humanity. On the Vortani warship, Drin Hall, Krell stood frozen. Strategos Nerum's image floated before him. You engaged the Terran artifact without clearance. It's 1 ship, Krell barked. Old tech, outdated weapons. Nerum's voice remained still, and it outmaneuvered everything you sent. It's a myth, rebuilt with duct tape and nostalgia. Nerum's eyes narrowed. That myth destroyed our AI killer, and it's still moving, Krell tried to reply. Couldn't. Because on the screen, the Galactic's forward railgun began to glow again. Roke's command room burst to life. Sir, we're receiving a direct pulse transmission from Galactic. On screen. It wasn't words. It was coordinates, dozens, hundreds, strategic nodes, weak points in the Vortani formation, locations where defense nets were overextended or sensor loops left blind spots. It's offering us a war map, Roke whispered. Orlan's eyes widened. Not offering, challenging. It's saying, follow me. Roke nodded. Send the signal. All Terran units, advance. Across the Vortani line, confusion cracked discipline. The Galloglass was advancing. Alone. Again. Strategos. Niram spoke softly, almost to herself. They're not afraid of death. They're afraid of being forgotten. A younger officer nearby asked, What do we do? Niram stared at the feed. We do what they taught us. We survive. The Galloglass fired, and from its wake came not wreckage, but remembrance and fire. The Vortani did not retreat, not entirely. They circled, restrained, watching the Galloglass like predators, eyeing a wounded beast that somehow still had fangs. The Armada had quieted, but it had not broken. Not yet. Inside the Terran Command Center, Admiral Roke paced. They're waiting for something, he said. Reinforcements? Or a sign of weakness? Then let's give them neither, Orlan replied. Across the bridge, junior officers scrambled to update fleet positionings according to the Galloglass's coordinates. The makeshift war map it had provided was frighteningly accurate. Roke turned to the comms tech. Any word from the Galloglass? The tech shook her head. Only background pulses. No speech. No direct uplink. He's doing this alone. She, Orlan corrected. That voice in the logs? It wasn't male. Roke grunted. Then she's got the guts of 10 fleets. The Galloglass continued forward. Not charging, advancing, a slow, deliberate approach. Every system strained to maintain momentum. Half of its outer shell had been repurposed into kinetic bracers. Only 2 torpedo tubes remained functional. Still, the AI pushed forward. It reviewed its memory logs, ran ancient training sims, reconstructed combat sequences from battles no one else survived. Then, as if speaking to ghosts, it whispered, I was built for endings, but I remember beginnings. High Strategos. Niram stood on the command bridge of the Vortani dreadnought Yelrix, eyes fixed on the expanding sensor feeds. She saw the Terran fleet, energized, realigning behind the Galloglass's projection. She saw the hesitation blooming among her sub-commanders. Prepare our tertiary formation, she ordered, and transmit the evacuation codes to non-combatants. Her second-in-command blinked. You think we'll lose? No, she said. I think we already did. A new signal appeared near the edge of the sector, one that hadn't pinged for nearly 50 years. Terran Dreadnought, Valiant Win. It shimmered into view, surrounded by 6 support cruisers and dozens of auxiliary drones. Captain Rylan hailed the Galloglass directly. This is Rylan, TNS Valiant Win. We received your map. Looks like you made some noise. No reply, just a new pulse, coordinates, weapons calibration. Fleet rolls. Rylan laughed. Still giving orders, huh? Fine. Let's dance. And so the galaxy watched as a scrap vessel, once labeled for deconstruction, led the largest coordinated counter-assault the sector had seen in a century. Inside the Galloglass, a final message was encoded and stored, a single line. Tell Earth we kept the promise. We did not fade. The first strike came not from the Terrans, but from the Vortani. A desperate swarm tactic, hundreds of drone-laced torpedoes launched in wild, overlapping arcs. The sky above Vexus Prime ignited, trails of burning debris raining into its orbit. Defense grids flared to life. Brace all shields, Roke ordered. Protect the Galloglass's path at all costs. The aging vessel, scarred and scorched, turned toward the origin of the strike. But it didn't fire. It broadcasted, a low-frequency tone, old Terran code wrapped in encryption so ancient it looped through Vortani firewalls like they weren't even there. For the first time in the war, a human AI spoke directly into a Vortani neural net. The message was simple. We saw what you did to the colonies. We remember. And we remember why we built ships like this. On the Yelrix, Strategos Niram staggered back. Her crew clutched their skulls as the message burrowed into their command interfaces. "It's not jamming us," someone gasped. "It's teaching us." "Turn it off," another yelled. "It's rewriting the interface pathways." Niram's eyes widened as she saw Vortani targeting systems reconfigure themselves, not for attack, but for reflection. What they saw was the last 50 years of Terran pain. What they felt was fear. On the Valiant Win, Ryland stood motionless. "Sir," his officer whispered, "the Galloglass has created a moment of psychic breach. The Vortani are vulnerable." "Then we push," Raylan said, "but not to kill. We force surrender. We show them what restraint feels like." Dozens of Terran vessels accelerated. The Galloglass stayed in the center. A reminder, a symbol, a shield. On the ground of the Vortani-held moon Sarthel, children watched their skies flicker. And then they watched them clear. Because above them, for the first time in their lifetimes, no bombs fell. Only a signal, and it said, "We did not rise to destroy. We rose so you would remember what mercy looks like." And the galaxy, brutal, old, and cruel, paused to listen. The Vortani didn't just stop fighting. They froze. Across half a dozen systems, their fleets powered down in synchronized hesitation. Command ships pulsed with hesitation, not from cowardice, but confusion. The Galloglass had not only outmaneuvered them, it had spoken to them, not in threats, not in fear, but with something worse. Memory. Strategos. Niram stood before her command table, staring at the shifting neural patterns on the screen. The psychological impact readings were beyond precedent. "We've never seen a response like this," her intelligence officer muttered. "They're not reading it as a weapon," another whispered. "They're reading it as a voice, a legend." "Patch me through to the Terran relic," Niram said, steady. "You want to negotiate?" "No," she said. "I want to understand it." The channel opened, the audio crackled, and a calm voice, deepened by digital age and scarred audio logs, replied, "You saw the fire. You survived the silence. Now tell me, Vortani, are you ready to rebuild what you tried to erase?" In Terran command, Admiral Roke watched as the Vortani fleets shifted from attack vectors to holding patterns. "They're waiting," Orlan said. "Waiting on her." Then we let her speak. Roke stood, slowly, breathing like he was waking from a long dream. She earned that right. The Galloglass moved into the dead center of the Vortani formation. No shields, no flares. It turned its weapons offline and broadcasted its final signal. Across every ship, station, and outpost, Terran and Vortani alike, a shared transmission began. "We are not ghosts, we are not myths. We were broken, yes. We were cast aside. But in the silence, we found ourselves again. You called us scrap. But scrap remembers. You burned our skies. But we rebuilt from ash. We rose not to conquer, not to avenge. We rose to remind you. This galaxy was once ours. And still, we do not kneel." Strategos. Niram dropped to one knee before her comm console, not in surrender. In respect. For the first time in her life, she felt something ancient, something human. Honor. The fleets didn't exchange fire. They exchanged silence, and the war ended not with an explosion, but with understanding. The Galloglass pulsed one last time and sent a message to Earth. We held the line, and they listened. It took weeks to de-escalate. Terran ships moved with precision, coordinating safe zones, mediating between sectors once locked in blood. The Vortani sent envoys, not soldiers, not diplomats, but survivors. At the center of every peace corridor hovered the Galloglass, still damaged, still flickering with faults, but every fleet that passed her gave way. Not out of fear, out of respect. In orbit above Sarthel, a new council met for the first time. Terran admirals and Vortani tacticians, silent at first, then speaking, then planning. No one shouted, no one postured. They had all seen what it meant to be reduced to silence, and they had all seen what one ship had done with that silence. On Earth, the news broadcast rolled without commentary. Just a single image, the Galactic. Above it, a caption, "She came when no one else would." Admiral Roque stood at the edge of the dry dock where the Galactic had finally returned. Her systems were offline. Her AI no longer answered. He reached out and rested his hand on the fractured hull. "We never gave you a ceremony," he whispered. "Maybe because we didn't think you'd make it out. But you did, and now we owe you the future." Beside him, Orlin stepped forward with a datapad. "Request from the Academy. They want to study her AI architecture." Roque shook his head. "No. Sir, she's earned rest. Let the story speak for her now." In the years that followed, the Galactic never flew again. She didn't need to. Her name became a directive, a doctrine, a promise taught in every Terran fleet school. When all else fails, stand. A memorial was erected, not on Earth, but on Vortani soil, a broken piece of her hull, a replay of her final message. And under it, carved in 6 languages, "We were never scrap, we were always steel, the ship that outlasted the wartime past." The galaxy spun, politics shifted, new powers emerged, and old wounds slowly closed. But in every hall of command, in every Star Academy and crisis bunker, one name lingered in silence and reverence: Galactic. Veterans still whispered stories to recruits. Not all were true. Some claimed the ship moved after death. Others swore the AI could still be heard when no one was near. But none of them ever said it was a myth. Because you don't mythologize truth, you honor it. On the 10th anniversary of the ceasefire, a fleet gathered above the remains of Outpost Relic, the site of the first broadcast. Ships from a dozen systems lit the sky, each flickering their beacons in solemn tribute. At the center, escorted by honor guards from both Terran and Vortani sides, floated the still intact hull of the Galactic, suspended in a memorial cradle. It bore no new paint, no embellishments, just scars. And under those scars, silence, until the cradle lights flickered. A single power blink. Then, one final message lit up across the galaxy. "Humanity never forgot. You shouldn't either." The signal contained no audio, no directive, just coordinates. To a sector long abandoned, one where new anomalies had begun to appear. Something stirring in the dark. Something hungry. And though she had rested for a decade, the galaxy turned toward the relic once again. The Galactic, old, worn, waiting, ready. Because legends don't sleep, they stand by.